Hello, hello.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Chris. Thanks for joining us here on this kind of special edition Career Edge live stream. And I know for folks that have joined the Career Edge stuff before, we've had panel discussions and all that good stuff. But this time it's just we're going to talk about a very special topic around hiring, kind of hiring strategy, and especially for startups. And of course, we are, this is the Edge AI Foundation, so we're kind of into Edge AI. But I would say, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, probably applies to other kind of tech fields as well. But why don't you introduce yourself for those that aren't familiar with you already?
I'm Chris Watson. I've only had one job the last 18 years, and it's building startups to some kind of event. So catching them at every stage of growth. I grew up in Asia. I live in Texas now. My family's all here in Texas, but all my clients are in the coastal cities and sometimes overseas. So working in the Edge AI, IoT space, cyber, everything to do with connected intelligence for the last 12 years, helping founders across all those key areas of growth.
Awesome. So where did you grow up in Asia?
Taiwan. Taiwan was my home.
Oh,
Yeah, parents were teachers, spent some time in China, but mostly Taiwan. Came
interesting.
back over 19. Yeah.
So your Mandarin's pretty good.
Well, 不会讲中文.
Okay,
No, it's rusted a bit. I went back about 11 years ago with my wife. We went the whole island tour. We used to live a whole month. We got to go the whole island, and we were fine.
Oh, nice.
We ate, we got to eat, and we never got lost. But
Sure.
it's rusted a bit.
Well, I find Taiwan to be it's actually a pretty friendly country for English speakers too, because I think because of the tech, the amount of tech happening. Maybe this is more Taipei and Hsinchu, but and English tends to be kind of one of the common languages in the tech world. There tends to be, I've
they
been to
started
Taiwan.
studying at kindergarten. They'd start taking English classes in kindergarten.
Yeah. So for those that haven't been,
yeah,
feel free to go because you'll be fine.
Yeah, definitely go. They're so friendly. They're the most hospitable people in the world.
Yeah,
they're so hospitable, and I got lots of stories I could share on that at some other point. Getting lost in south of Taiwan, but they're wonderful people.
Interesting. Yeah. Good. So let's talk a little bit about the topic at hand, which is around kind of building kind of, I call it building high performance teams, but I guess in your case you might talk about, we talk about this idea of, how do we hire upstream and making strategic investments in people, especially in small companies. When you're first starting out, I mean, every hire is super critical, right? And you can't afford to miss the mark a little bit. I mean, I was at Microsoft for 18 years. We had 200,000 people. So obviously, like for my team, everybody I hired is really critical. But there was a lot of people there. So even if they weren't great at that particular job, there's probably another job they were good at. But I think in a startup, it's probably the inverse, where you really need these folks to be pretty high performance from day one, right? But what's your general guidance here for startups as they think about kind of human capital?
The biggest challenge I've seen founders tackle in the first few years is like the people that will get you from 0 to 5 million. Those people will not get you to 15 million. Like the personalities are so different. And this is pyramid I often see people take, where technology is at the very top. Founders put all their time and their thought on technology and product, and then like customers next. But at the very bottom of their priority list is like HR. So HR is this bucket of talent issues. And so the things that they tend to skip the most, interviews and resume, they don't want to think about that, right? That their entire mindset is just technology. Get the technology right, everything else falls from there. What I've seen is the exact opposite. Is if you get the people right first, everything else flows from there. So everything is downstream. And I'm stealing this from Stephen Bartlett, Darvish CEO, but he says everything you want is downstream of people. The business memories you want, the team you want to build. Cosley even said, like, it's my number one thing I say is like the team you build is the company you build. So if you start with people first, everything else flows from there.
Right. And you're mentioning that, I mean, there's folks that kind of get you from 0 to 1, and then there's kind of folks that get you from 1 to 10. I mean, how do you think about, that differentiation in a person? You look at their kind of their experience or their approach, or what's the differentiation there?
So often founders, they're really held hostage by two things: by their own network and by their investors and board members. And so their entire lens and framework is, okay, who do my investors, because if they're first-time founders, even second-time founders, they're thinking about who did I work with before, and their board members. And so often the simplest way to work through this is to have a separate independent score sheet of what do we really need to tackle in the next year? What
Mm,
success actually look like? And think a year in advance, and then working backwards from that year in advance. What are the critical experience, not just experiences that they need to have, but behaviors and characteristics? Because you can get the right person on paper. It's really easy, especially with AI now, when you have
mhm,
it's in your pocket. What EQ comes really, really valuable, culture and EQ. You can have everything on paper, but if they're the wrong culture match, they're gonna blow up the company. And I think the stats, so you gotta go through 3 VPs of sales before you get someone who lands in a startup. There's ways to avoid all of that, and each VP of sales can easily cost you $1,000,000 in comp and lost opportunity. It's just the amount of money that's being spent by
right.
leaders.
And you tend to, in your work with companies, you tend to help people find those rock stars in the kind of business development, sales, marketing topics, right? As opposed to developers or
Right.
designers, right?
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
that's kind of your area.
Yeah. Growth.
So,
Bring your own growth. Yeah.
right, right, right. So,
Sales, marketing, customer success, all those pieces that go into it. And the piece that's most often missing in those first, the 0 to 1, is people
mm,
that can get in front of clients very quickly and validate an idea for that end piece.
mm,
People that have the technical and sales acumen both to
mm,
test an idea, and they have favors they can call, and sometimes the investors and board that's kind of their job, is to help you get those first conversations to validate an idea.
right,
But it's that window when once they validate, there's this chasm they have to go through to get to 10, 15 million, and the systems and process to get there is so different than the first few people who got you, the first
yeah.
few projects.
Yeah, we have a number of startups, a couple of dozen at least, in the Edge AI Foundation, which is awesome. And we have a
Mhm.
whole startup investor program,
Yeah,
matchmaking and stuff. We're actually going to be publishing the Edge AI pitch book pretty soon, which is pretty
love it.
exciting. First time. So the kind of a quarterly publication of like who's hot in the Edge AI startup space. But a lot of times I meet with folks, like you said, maybe they spun out from a university, or usually spun out from a big company with some folks with a good idea. And so, yes, it's very much about let's get the tech right. Let's build a cool product. And of course, yeah, without a disruptive, amazing product, you're not going to go very far. But quite often, and I just met with a company the other day, I think they had about 20 engineers on the team. They hired their first non-engineer. That's what they call this person, a non-engineer, which kind of sounds a little funny. Um,
What's your title? I'm not an engineer.
I'm a non-engineer, yes. But to do all that stuff other than engineering, I guess, which is kind of funny. But I think that's, probably not uncommon, is that, finding that person that's kind of more business oriented.
Mhm.
And I suspect that first hire out of the gate is wearing multiple hats, right? As the only non-engineer, their sales, their operations, there's marketing probably involved, business development, all in one hat. I mean, are there people that sort of, is that their spiel, that they are just good at that stuff and they kind of show up at startups and get them from 0 to 1? Or is that, I mean, I guess that's the question. Like if I was a startup and I came to you and I said, I need my first non-engineer hire,
Mm.
right? I have 20 engineers. We're cranking out the code
Yeah.
for the chip and it's all good. And we've got a little bit of seed money and we're going, but we need our first non-engineer. So is this like a biz dev person? Is it a sales person? Who is this person?
I mean, if you got 20 engineers before you're even talking about, I would be concerned on the numbers
Yeah.
already. Right? If you got 20 engineers, and I would always start with the customer in mind at the very end. Always start with the customers. Okay,
Right.
what are they building? What do they really want? You're building with them, right? You're not building for them yet, because it can, with the product life cycles now, it's just massively condensed, and you can
Mm,
have 3 or 4 engineers and a really strong sales engineer, a really strong field architect, someone who can work directly with the customers to get exactly what they need.
mm.
Um, my son is dropping things. Not right now.
Oh, is that
Working
you?
from home. Summer's already started. Summer school's here.
Oh,
Um, yeah, but I would say getting someone who can bridge the gap between customers and engineering, someone who knows exactly how customers think and their
mhm,
development life cycles, and exactly what they need.
Mm.
That's the rarest profile, is someone who was probably an engineer, but they have the mindset of value and solutions that customers, especially enterprise customers.
I see. I see. So yeah, someone with sort of a tech background or tech acumen, but
That's right.
is more kind of
And they can
customer.
translate exactly. Hey, here's exactly what some people call it like a field CTO. Oftentimes, it's the chief product officer
Hmm.
who can navigate both the product life cycles, engineering cycles, and sales cycles
I see.
with customers. That's
So
the rare.
that's what you would consider to be your first
Right.
non-engineer hire, is that kind of CTO, CPO
Right.
type person, right? So not necessarily not necessarily a salesperson or VP of sales, but
Right.
someone who's more maybe, yeah, it's got a little bit of one foot in the engineering camp and can understand the architecture and the
Mm,
tech, but also has a foot in the kind of business operations and sales customer side too, as
right.
opposed to, because you mentioned like VP of sales. When I think of VP of sales or chief revenue officer, I
Right.
think that's what they're called these days. Chief revenue officer.
Chief growth,
Uh,
chief commercial, a lot of
a
chief doing. Yeah.
lot of chiefs, too many chiefs. But yeah, so that kind of person is really like a rainmaker, a deal closer. Like they go out there and figure out like how do I kind of scale and sort of crank the value proposition and build relationships to close these big deals over time. So
I
but
would
that
call that
seems.
more of a founding AE. Really don't want a VP of sales or chief revenue
What
officer
does AE
until
stand for? What is founding
account
AE?
exec, founding
Oh,
account
okay.
exec. Yeah, someone who's relentless, but you really only need a VP of sales or chief revenue officer. This is the number one mishire I see happen
Hmm.
with young teams.
Okay.
They hire a chief revenue officer too soon or VP of sales way too soon,
Hmm.
way too soon. And that's why they have
Right.
to go through 3 of them before they can iterate. Because
Got it. Got it.
oftentimes you really want to bring that person in to help create the systems and process to move away from founder-led sales. There's this
Right. To scale it
critical gap.
into a
Right,
whole thing.
right.
So really what you're saying is this first non-engineer hire, first of all, don't wait for your 21st hire to do that.
Please don't. No. I
Please do
mean,
not.
be thinking about it as soon as you start the company. Who's my
Yeah,
field
you need
CTO?
somebody in that
Yeah,
core team, starting
yeah.
team. You're all sitting on milk crates around the table. You need one of those folks to be, I'm focused on who are like the customer that we're
Mm,
building with, right?
right.
And how are we going to monetize that
That's
customer
right.
relationship ultimately?
Yeah.
So that's your first hire, and that's like you said, CPO, CTO ish kind of person, non development person,
They have to be good with clients,
good with clients, good customer skills.
right? And they
Whereas,
have to be good with product and engineering, but it's a super rare profile. Then to get in the door, to call in a
mm,
favor, because these companies, if you want their attention, they have to basically call in a favor, and you can get favors to a certain degree from your board to get you an
well, part of it,
intro
I was going to say, the board there is to
board.
sort of help crack the
They
door
can.
open on some of these
That's the hope.
first partnerships. I mean, that's kind
Yeah.
of what you're looking at I guess, on the fundraising side. So I had a startup in the Bay Area, and we started with an angel investor. I think it was like $1 million. So that was great. But the person was not connected. He was just into the tech we were doing. It was around color correction. So it's a whole very obscure discussion, but got the $1 million. But then when we went for our Series A, we really were thoughtful about um, getting folks on our board that could open those doors. We sort of had an idea of who we were going to sell this stuff to, and getting board members that have those kind of executive connections, either through the kind of their personal work history or whatever. That, like you said, it's not just about making the deal and the sale, but it's about validating what you're doing
Mhm.
and getting feedback along the way.
Yeah.
Is like, am I building something that I think you want it, but obviously this is a whole other discussion around building product, and being kind of customer centric around that.
I mean, Pete, we talk about this all the time in the coffee talk. There's like a graveyard the last 12 years of amazing ideas and amazing pilot ideas that never got off the ground and scaled. Like it's just littered with. I've been in the IT space for 12 years, and the graveyard is just expansive of so many
Yes.
great ideas that just never took off. And
Yeah.
so I think that the critical gap is people that know execution and customers getting from that
Yes.
phase.
Yes. There's an author, Alberto Savoia. I'll throw that one out there. He wrote a book called The Right It. Um, and it was about like thinking about how you think about product definition in customer centric terms. There's a there's another guy named Clay Christensen. who was a professor at Harvard, and he had this concept of basically what job are you hiring the product for, right? And I think there's a term for it. I'll have to figure it out. What's it called? Jobs to be done. Jobs to be done. So, what is the job that you're hiring this product for? I know we're going off on a tangent here, but
Sure.
and Albert in his book, The Right It, kind of built on that concept, the jobs to be done framework. But Clay Christensen, Professor Christensen, and he's on YouTube, and you can go check out his lectures and stuff. I don't know if he's actively working anymore, but he gave an example of like McDonald's did this research on their milkshakes, and they're selling these milkshakes, and they were trying to understand why are people buying the milkshakes. And so at the top level, I can see like, I don't know, because they're delicious, but no, like there's a series of why that you ask the customer to understand, what job are they hiring the milkshake for, right? And they talk to people that were buying milkshakes in the morning for their commute to work. Okay, so that gives me like my extra, that's kind of like my breakfast, or milkshakes for as a reward after the Little League game. Or, so they talk to all these people to understand like, why are you hiring the milkshake? What are all the jobs the milkshake is doing? And so it's a fascinating thing. Like I said, it's on YouTube, but getting someone involved in your startup that understands kind of jobs to be done framework, the whole Clay Christensen, The Right It, and all that can be super valuable. And that person hopefully has those connections either directly or through the board to some of these, I would say, canonical customers who may not, maybe they don't ultimately buy your product, but they give you the feedback to help shape it so that the value prop comes out like razor sharp out of the gate. And then when you actually start approaching people and asking for money, you actually have something they want, and why they're going to hire that product. What job is to be done with that product. You've designed it to do a certain job, and then you can go in there and sell that. But like you said, hiring that first person who's not, writing code or laying out the chip or the PCB or whatever, that's a tough one. Where are these people? Are they just hanging out on, where are they? I mean, how do you find someone like that? Is it like, actually, I'll give you another story. Before you answer the question I asked you, I'm going to answer it with my own anecdote. I read an article many years ago called Hiring Michael Jordan. I don't know if I told you this story, but it was like, there was an article, it was like, how do you hire Michael Jordan? And obviously, for those not aware that live under a rock, the greatest basketball player of all time. So, you can't just go out and hire Michael Jordan. You put a want ad out there saying I'm in search of the greatest basketball player of all time. The concept behind the article was you need to start hiring Michael Jordan before you need Michael Jordan. Like you need to start building a network of great people and sort of keep track of them and stay in touch with them. Because at some point you will need them. And then when you need them, you can reach out to them. And I thought that was a really interesting insight, is that building the network of great people. And we just talked about this kind of type of person. I think a lot of us that have been in the business for a little while are like, yeah, I know 2 or 3 people that kind of fit that bill. I mean, is that typically they come to you and they say, we got our 20 engineers, or hopefully 10. How do you find Michael Jordan? How do you find these people that need to fit this niche?
The big part that's often missed around hiring Michael Jordan is that he wouldn't have joined if there wasn't a team of people that could support him, that he could depend on. So that's this idea of talent density. The more people you surround yourself with that are smarter than you and can supplement your own weaknesses, the more it's going to draw even more people from their networks. So much of the world I play in is just referrals. Like I've done hundreds of hires and a bunch of customers, but my whole world is just based, it's all on referrals, friends of friends.
Right.
And so that's just my main encouragement to founders and people in growth mode is you got to invert that pyramid and think, okay, it's not an HR issue, it's a talent issue. I got to spend half my time every week thinking about talent and people, networking with the right people. And your board and investors can help with this, but there's the alumni communities can really help with this. There are trade shows. There's gonna be a lot of tourists, and a lot of tourists will waste your time. And
What do you mean by
hopefully
tourist? What's a tourist? What do you
there's
mean?
so many tourists in this industry, people that are just there to go explore and look around. They're not serious.
I see.
And that's the founders, one of the biggest problems is tourists that waste
Hmm.
their time. And
Hmm.
so there's a lot of ways you can filter out the tourists. But the goal
I
would be to find, okay, I know I'm going to need these personalities in the next 1 or 2 years. I mean, my favorite example, it took me 9 years working with one CMO to get in the right place, the right time. So much of it was timing. Timing was just bad every
Oh, okay.
other year.
So this person was looking to help a company out.
Sarah Brown, right? I shout out to Sarah if you're watching this. But
Okay.
I knew her across multiple iterations of her career, but timing was never good until the opportunity came with Flow Life. And so it's so much of
Oh,
it's timing. You have to, once you find good people, you hold on to them. And
yeah.
these are simple touch points, and you can even automate a lot of this now with AI.
Mm,
Say, hey, this is a
mm,
really good person I met. I cannot lose track of this person. And I can trace I've had my business for 12 years now. I can trace almost my entire business to a handful of insiders, people that are really, really generous with their time and really generous with their contacts. And they've opened up all these doors for me that it would never have been opened. So I look for insiders. I look for people that are really kind and that are in the right places with the right
right.
influence,
Right.
and stay in touch with them
And you put the
religiously.
Michael Jordan tag on them and
Yeah.
cook
Yeah.
them for a little bit. But yeah, no, I agree. It needs to be the right fit. And I think
Yeah.
collecting those folks up front. So I would say if, and everyone should have their list of people they would really like to work with someday. I actually just referred someone. So the Edge AI Foundation, we have about 70 plus companies involved.
Mhm.
Pretty much the top tech companies in the world on Edge AI are part of our foundation. Little pitch there. By the
Love
way,
it.
if you're at a company that's doing Edge AI and you're not part of the foundation, then pick up the phone.
That's right.
But we have a WhatsApp channel and we have a pretty big WhatsApp community in there. And there's one channel in there that's called Career sub channel. And people just post, hey, this person's available, or I'm looking for somebody. And so there's always a little chatter on there. But I posted someone the other day, and I usually don't post people there, but this person reached out to me, said, hey, I'm available. I had hired this person twice at 2 different companies.
Mhm.
That's how good they are.
Mhm.
And so he was like, hey, do you need any help? And I'm like, well, we're kind of full up with people right now. We could always use help,
That's right.
but if you want to volunteer, but hiring wise, we're kind of at capacity. But I said, let me post your CV and
Mhm.
details into the WhatsApp channel. And I led with, I've hired this guy twice already. So, that's my recommendation. And he does X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And so that's someone who's just on my list who I've,
Yeah.
like I said, you know,
Your best hires will always come through referrals. Your best
Exactly.
hires, the best jobs you have will always come through referrals.
Yeah,
And so you got to be
exactly.
religious about how do you find and curate those referral networks.
Yeah. Now, that being said, I will say this too. You have to keep an open mind to expand your network. Because we have
Mhm.
sort of inherent biases,
Absolutely.
in your network.
Yep.
We hire people that are like us or think like us or whatever, or look like us. And we also need to make sure that we have diversity in our team so that we're getting perspectives that maybe we didn't think about. So, and I felt that too. I've like looked around and be like, wow, my team kind of looks like me.
Mm.
Thinks like me. Like I need to make sure I get people that don't think like me and look like me
Mhm.
to get that perspective. So that's where you go out, beyond your comfort zone into
Yeah.
beyond your little short list of
Yeah.
like, so getting out there, and I don't know if it's LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever the platform is these days that makes sense, but you do need to sort of cast a net and think about getting people on board your teams that are, going to challenge your thinking a little bit.
Yeah.
It's really important. So
It is.
otherwise it's just confirmation bias and you all, everyone agrees with Pete and then bad things happen.
I will put this note in there. I mean, if you post on LinkedIn, it's going to be a 2% hit rate on LinkedIn, on
I was
Indeed,
going to say
whatever. It can
0.2%.
be a black hole of just you have 800 applicants in the first 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
That's the most common. There's hundreds of applicants, and it's easy to get lost. You can spend months. I've seen founders who've spent months just going through all the applications. Your best bet is to still double down on referrals and referral networks to people that, like you said, don't think like you, but that are insiders, and curating those insiders in these different pockets. So I've got people that bird dog for me in key cities and key companies that I've maintained relationships with for years. So it's like, hey, I know Microsoft is letting a lot of people. I have my insider say, hey, what's going on? Who are the people that are leaving? Why are they being forced to use Copilot? Why are they tracking Copilot? And so I have this insider knowledge of that would cause people to say, hey, maybe it's time to go. Same thing with Palantir. So I've had a lot of luck recently with all these companies that are getting rid of amazing, amazing people because of AI compute. They're saying it's AI efficiency. It's just absolute BS. It's all on compute costs. There's a whole wave of people now that are giving up all 10 years worth of stock to go do something else. And a lot of them want startups. They don't want the corporate grind anymore. So there's going to be a flood of new entrepreneurs, a flood of new activity, and that really encourages me. The question I had for you though, Pete. So there's
Yes.
this heyday happening right now in AI. Some of these engineers are making millions of dollars, and there's some people don't even have a product yet, and they're getting billions of dollars upfront. Why do you feel like the edge AI communities doesn't have those kind of stories where it's like, here's $1 billion with no product, right? $1 million packages for engineers.
Well, I would say this, those kinds of investment scenarios are not always healthy. They're usually not healthy because that means that they've bought in on some kind of hype, some kind of promise without reality. And so, what I call the greater fool theory. So you did your job, you found the greater fool. But now you got an incredible amount of pressure, incredible amount of expectations that are set that are probably never going to be achieved. So it's not a healthy situation to sort of just get an absolute shit ton of money with no product.
Yeah.
It's not a healthy environment to even build and run a startup, because inevitably someone's going to get disappointed. Someone's going to get disappointed. So I think that's okay. So we don't have too many, we don't have too many unicorns in the edge AI community that are just swimming in cash. I think the edge computing world, as opposed to maybe the cloud world, and again, it's all good. It's all the same team. It's grounded in a lot of kind of real world problems that need to be solved. I was mentioning to you before this, next week, here's my little PSA. We have a first episode of what's called Edge AI Solutions, co-hosted with myself and Jennifer Skinner Gray of Avnet. And it's really about applied Edge AI. And episode 1 is called No Bad Apples. And it's like using Edge AI to discern apple quality in agriculture. So I think this business here in general of Edge tends to be grounded in a lot of commercial reality, as opposed to sort of consumer bullshit. We don't have anyone in the foundation building fake AI girlfriends or whatever. I don't know. So we tend to not have that kind of overhype.
Yeah.
But I would say, that's kind of a red flag for me. If I met a founder and said, yeah, I got $1 billion, I don't have a product yet, and I'm going to spend a ton of money on hiring all these talented people. Yikes. Might work out, but I would be slowly backing away.
Yeah.
And going to get some chips and dip at that cocktail party.
Do you tend to see the same people over the last 5 years? Are you seeing new incumbents, people coming in?
Yeah. I mean, there's always new hires coming in. I met the CEO of a startup who was, I don't know how old he was, 22, 23. He told me it was his first full-time job, was starting this company. And a lot of ambition, a lot of interest. One of the cool things about startups, especially founders that are early in career, is that they don't know what's not possible. So they go in there with a bias toward action and a bias toward success. So it's bringing in a lot of folks that want to try new things and disrupt the market.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And then, also out of the colleges, universities, we work with a lot of universities, as you know. The talent flow coming out of universities these days is amazing. They're AI native engineers, AI native technologists, that understand, where physical AI is at and heading, and coding agents and all that other stuff. So they bring a lot of fresh ideas and energy into any organization. So, I would say for me, the balance is, you want some folks that kind of know what they're doing. Okay. Check. And maybe have had a few failures in their past and successes, right? That can bring that to the table, that perspective. But you also need some folks that are just all gas and no brake, that are just coming in and just like, let's just light this whole thing up on fire, you know?
Mhm.
So that could be an exciting and fun thing. Now, as a manager or as a founder and leader, obviously you have some challenges there, right? The most challenging employees I ever had, and I think about startups I've done as well as at Microsoft. At Microsoft, we had what were called hypos, high potentials. So out of a group of like 50 employees, maybe a couple of them were designated as hypo. It was like a special label that went into their file. And they were consistently in the upper right quadrant of like performance and compensation. And like, so you always had, you wanted to get hypos on your team.
Mhm.
And if you had hypos on your team, they needed to be well fed, right? So just like the lion in the zoo, you had to have a good supply of steaks to
Mhm.
throw at this person, to keep them well fed. Otherwise, they'd bail, right? Because they're like, we're going to change the world and all that stuff. Cool. So it was always challenging to have a hypo, but very rewarding. But you had to know that if you had a hypo on your team, keep throwing steaks, because they need to be challenged and they need to have something big to work on, and those are great folks to have, but they're tough to keep. So yeah, so there's a balance there. Now you can't have a team full of hypos because then it's like Lord of the Flies. Um, you need some people that have like been there, done that. Like, okay,
Mhm.
everyone, let's kind of you know um, keep moving. In fact, Jeff Bezos, I saw an interview with him the other day. He told a story about Bezos is a big idea guy, and he would push out every meeting. He'd push out a dozen new ideas for the team. And one of his folks that's kind of been there, done that, came up to him afterward and said, "Hey, you have enough ideas to kill Amazon."
Mhm.
Um, so and Jeff's like, "What?" Like, yeah, you have like there's too much. Like, you need to figure out how to release the work to the team in a
Yeah.
way where they can digest it. So if you have a whole team of hypos, then it's just going to be chaos. So finding that team balance too is really critical. That's what I found. Mm.
One of the most encouraging trends I'm seeing right now, particularly for these companies that are getting the most amount of funding, their one of their earliest hires is ahead of people, is ahead of talent. They're thinking,
Mm.
like, within the first 5 hires. They're thinking, "Okay,
Really?
talent is our core focus, our core function.
Mm.
We want this person to be part of the founding team, serious founder level
Mm.
equity, is a chief people officer, ahead of talent."
Really
Yeah.
interesting. I mean,
I'm seeing
that's
that
kind
happen a
of
lot.
it's a non-trivial hire, I would assume. So you're putting some
The entire
serious.
focus is long-term planning, knowing it can take 2, 3 years to get some of these
Yeah,
key people,
yeah.
the hypos they're gonna
Interesting.
need down the road.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably, I guess when you look at startups and evaluate them, that's one of the things you look at is like, well, who have you hired? Have you hired a chief people officer, or
Mhm.
are you balanced? Are you building for the long term,
Mhm.
or are you just trying to ship something?
Mhm.
And maybe if you only have 20 engineers and no non-engineers, maybe that's not ideal. So yeah, that's another takeaway, I guess, for founders is like, how do you balance your staffing? So it's not just people checking in code, right?
Mhm. What have
So
you seen happen with EQ, like the teams that do have with all this new intelligence in your pocket, your PhD levels in your pocket, how have you seen EQ change or hiring around EQ now that you have commoditized intelligence and products? Like
hmm.
what
Well, I don't know if we're there yet on commoditized intelligence. I'll push back a little bit on that.
yeah.
That sounds like one of those unicorn hype things.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's a good question. I think that at the end of the day, and this is not an AI thing, probably not even an internet thing, but even going back to the beginning of time when people started to work together, there's some folks that help others be successful, and have empathy and understanding and a little bit of kindness thrown in, as well as, rock star intelligence. Um, and there's some people that are not, that
Mm.
are in it for their own thing. And, you want to avoid those folks, whether you're working on the farm or you're working on the coal mine or you're working in Fremont, California, kind of checking in code for the next, chatbot thing.
Yeah.
So that's like a lesson learned, I would say. It's a lesson that I learned over my career too, is like, discerning people with high EQ and how they could be a real force multiplier for an organization, right? And the opposite's true, right? You know, we talk about toxic hires and people that just slash and burn, leave dead bodies. You know, it's like, yeah, but I achieved all this stuff. It's like, yeah, but look at all the dead bodies that you left. You know, the customers that hate us, the employees that quit, the board members that hate you, and, you know, all this other stuff. This is bad. So you need to, you know, as a founder and a leader, you need to sort of cauterize that sooner rather than later, right?
Yeah.
And you know, that's actually an interview question I used to ask people, is about, give me an example of like a toxic hire or a toxic employee that you had to work with, and how did you deal with it? Because tough. Sometimes those folks just are like not self-aware, you know, and especially if they're early in career, great coaching opportunity to let people know how they're coming across, and usually a surprise to them.
Yeah.
Because they think everyone loves them.
Yeah.
And like, not exactly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm sure you deal with that too, right? You have folks that are very aware of their skills and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and you probably have some folks that are just blissfully unaware.
Yeah.
Is that the
Well,
case, or?
there's definitely the 80-20 rule. I see that all the time, where 20% of your hires are doing 80% of the work, and you got to do everything you can to keep hold of those. And there's a lot of dissent on, do we hire the diva or not? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Because some of these divas, they can have an incredible outperformance and a lot, but they also can come with a lot of baggage and frustration for people. Eric Schmidt, he just posted something about this, like, hire the divas, because he thinks it's worth it. But truthfully, what I've seen, if the person doesn't know how to manage a diva, then they're going to go off the rails.
Yeah, it's not really the diva; it's the management and leadership that the diva is working with. Now, if the diva is the founder, then, well, it's their balls, their rules, I guess. But you know, putting the diva in a container and letting them operate freely within that is that's the challenge. But yeah, no, I agree. I think you need rock stars, because I think you mentioned before, like, every time I would hire someone for a team, I would want the average performance of the team to increase. Right. So you want to hire someone that's like right here, and then everyone else is like, it goes up. Everyone sees that this person is doing this thing that maybe they're not doing, or doing it a different way, and then everyone gets better. So every hire you make is an investment in the increase in the average performance of the team. And that's how you get high performance teams, is that you keep going up and up and up. Occasionally there's going to be somebody down there that's just like, okay, this is not my thing. Everyone's working too hard and doing too much stuff, so I'm going to bail. Okay, fine. So they leave. So that's hopefully in your bottom 10%. And then you hire another person up here, and you just keep going up. Right. So sometimes divas can be very helpful in that they provide aspirational levels of performance for other folks.
They can bring in their friends that are also likely to be.
Well, they bring in their friends. Yeah. And they just inspire people to do more, you know, and to be better.
The other big gap I see here is that, especially around VPs of sales and CROs, a lot of them don't know how to identify a B player and how to coach that B player up to an A player. Because you really can't, oftentimes these startups, they can't afford to only have A players, because A players are just really, really expensive. So you can't stack your team with only A players. As everyone says, they only
issue. Yeah.
You've got to have people you can say, okay, this is a B player, but they have a player potential, and I'm going to coach them up to it. I'm going to invest in them. They're not going to be nearly as expensive, but they're going to be worth it, because I see these things and I can coach up. So that coaching element is so often missing, where they only want to hire A players all the time, right? That their only goal is, I can only afford A players. But oftentimes what you really need is a few A players, and then hiring B players and coaching them up to that A player status.
Yes. No, I agree. You know, then there's the trick is the A player, is the B player actually potential to have an A player? And how do you make a determination with, like, well, I guess they're just a B player.
Or they're a C player and you got to get them out, right?
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. Well, the other thing I mean, this is not a founder issue, but probably folks that are bigger companies that are listening in. And we have a lot of big companies in the foundation. We have AWS, we have Dell, we have Advantech, Qualcomm, NXP. I mean, these are big. ST Microelectronics, big tech. So we also have a lot of startups, onesie twosies, maybe 20, and then these big companies. But the big company thing, one thing you'll find, and I'm curious what your perspective is on this, is you will sometimes inherit teams, right? your boss comes to you and says, "Hey, can you take this over?" And so left, or for whatever reason, or can you just? And I had that happen to me when I was at Microsoft. I remember my first 6 months there. I came in as a kind of kind of a director. I was a chief product officer at a startup in the Bay Area, and I came into Microsoft, and so I knew some stuff, or at least apparently they thought I knew stuff. So my boss at the time, she threw me all kinds of teams that I inherited. So we built this sort of big quasi team. It was very interesting. And yeah, all types of folks, people that have been there for years, people that just started, college hires, veterans, all kinds of folks. I mean, not literally veterans, but sometimes veterans, but people have just been there forever. And then how do you take that person and that team and kind of increase performance, right? That's probably not a founder issue, but it's more of a big tech issue, I think.
They often just don't. They consider it, once again, this pyramid, like it's an HR issue, coaching, mentoring. There's like, I just don't have time for it, right? Like and I agree, most founders don't. They got to hire the people who do have the time for that. But their entire focus is pushing up those talent issues to the very top of their priority list.
Yeah, no, and I think that that's tough. And then also, like you said, if you end up with folks that are sort of C players on the team, that takes a lot of cycles, right? So that could be put toward the business that you're now putting toward helping a person, either get better or get out.
And this goes back to those simple changes you can make. So my number one encouragement for founders is to have scorecards and swim lanes. As you're interviewing anybody, have a really clear scorecard. Everyone agrees. This is exactly the behaviors, the characteristics, the experiences, the references that we need. Having a 1 year out is exactly what success looks like. We can pivot if we need to, but here's what we're aiming for. And then having swim lanes. Swim lanes are so important. You can't have the founder interviewing for every single thing. He might want to be touching on one thing like culture, or your CTO. You need to
so
have
assigning when you say swim lanes, like in the interview process, each person
you're going to
has
interview for
kind of
this
their own
thing only. You're not getting out of your swim lane. This is your lane to interview on this thing only. If it's a deep dive, technically, that is your entire role. You're not asking about money. You're not asking about background. You're only looking at one thing. And having a swim lane and a comprehensive scorecard, the only way you can really be objective. So often I've seen founders, they just kind of fire on gut. They hire on gut, and it burns them all the time. This is where you want to have a team approach. The team approach makes all the difference, especially with these swim lanes. Hey, you are focusing on culture. You are focusing on technology and product. You're focusing on backgrounds and references. So there's this list of things. So you actually come up with an objective scoring system at the end. Like, hey, here's what a great hire actually looks like.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And we had similar, I would say at our startups and stuff, we probably weren't as disciplined with the swim lanes and the scorecards. But at Microsoft, for example, I was like designated as an AA, which is called as appropriate. So I would be the last interview that you would come to me, and I would give you we had special training about culture and teamwork and all that stuff. So I would ask about that stuff. And not the technical stuff, and not like what you did last summer and all that other stuff. But yeah, no, that's a good discipline. And even at the startup and founder stage, it's really critical to have that kind of discipline. It's a good discipline to build, whether you're at Fortune 100 or just starting out, right?
And it's another simple one's a rule of fives, right? No more than 5 total interviews. No more than 5 total interviewers. Sometimes they want to add on like every single person in the company. And for A players, you're going to burn them out. And then no more than 5 business days between each step. I've seen people go 2-3 months trying to deliberate on what do we really want. You got to get all that done first, because if you have more than 5 business days go between interview steps, the person's out. That's the fastest way to lose interest in an A player. The rule of 5. No more than 5 steps. No more than 5 interviewers, no more than 5 steps, no more than 5 business days between each step. You really want to have it be closer to like 2 or 3, but no more than 5. Because if you do that, they lose interest so fast.
Yeah,
the good ones are going to go.
Yeah. Makes sense. I would respect that. Yeah, you hear about these stories about folks that go through like round after round and
12 interviews, 12 people. It's just like, why? Can you not make a decision? The only way candidates, A players, really know what's going to look like on the other side working for the company is how they're treated during the process. So if you really want people to come in, like, hey, here's exactly what you're going to expect on the other side. We are efficient. We know exactly what we're aiming for. It's like it's your best chance to sell them on the opportunity during the interview process, not just during interviews, but the interview process itself. Like, we have a decision-making criteria, and we know what we're going for.
We know what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, we have a question that came in, and it's not super specific on hiring, but I wanted to bring it up just because this person was just asking about their focus on LMS, SLM architecture, want to focus on Edge AI, specify any roadmaps, follow this channel, find it interesting. Well, since you asked the question, I would say the best place to start is to go to our YouTube channel. So youtube.com/at Edge AI Foundation. And you will find we actually just did a live stream, a generative Edge AI live stream. It was like 2 days worth of tech talks, I think 12 or 15 tech talks back to back. So if you're interested in kind of like language architecture on the edge, I would start with that playlist. And after you go through the 15 hours of videos, you'll be an expert. So anyway,
This is your homework, 15 hours. Yep.
That's your homework. Yeah, there you go. 15 hours of videos.
And my encouragement to every engineer, and this is part of the coaching work that I do, is surround yourself with good people. You can talk about roadmaps and architecture. In the end, we are still in the people business. The best thing you can do is find amazing people and learn from them and do whatever it takes to get around proximity, the proximity principle. If you have to relocate, if you got to move to a new city, no matter what, get around the kind of people they're going to shoot you forward in your career, even if it means taking a pay cut.
Good point on the proximity thing. I mentor a lot of engineering students, and I always tell them on that out of college, the goal is to get a job, not the job, first of all. So you get a job because a job leads to other jobs, and you meet people and you get mentors and you network. But, kind of prepare yourself to pack your bags, because whatever college or university you went to, I'm sure it was cool and you had a lot of fun and you got a cool apartment and all that good stuff, all the bars. But guess what? You're going to, Fayetteville, Arkansas, or you're going somewhere where the job is to get started. If you're in Boston, you're going to California. If you're in Minnesota, you're going to New York. I don't care. But get ready to pack your bags, because I think the proximity principle, like you said, is really important to be there. Dedicates a year or two at least in this new space physically to sort of meet people and get into it, and good things happen. You put yourself out there and good things happen. But the proximity principle, putting yourself, and the other thing is, like, there's so many online communities as well, on Discord. We have YouTube, we have these live streams, we have local events and things too. Like, go to some of these local events, local meetups, and meet with folks, especially your friend, you're trying to get into the market, change your careers around. I think it's really critical. So it's good. I had an anecdote that I was going to give. Oh, let me give you an anecdote here on hiring. So you mentioned the rule of fives, and I was at Microsoft and I was being recruited for this role, and I won't say who the company is, but pretty senior role, and it was a relo, by the way. Interestingly, it was a relo to Atlanta, Georgia. And so I grew up in New Jersey. I'm here, been here like 20 years in the Seattle area. This was a few years ago, by the way, not recent. I was at Microsoft, and this company has called me up, and they're recruiting. Maybe, I don't know. So it was interesting. So I had an interview. I don't know if it was 5 interviews, but it was a bunch of interviews. Time went on, like weeks went on between these interviews. So that's a bad sign. I'm like, all right, whatever. I said, are you guys still interested? Oh, yeah. Very important role, blah, blah. So then they said, oh, we want you to do a business simulation. It's like a day-long business simulation where they had actors come on and pretend to be in certain roles, and I had to create PowerPoint decks, and I had to, there's a whole business simulation that was going on. So they wanted to put me through the paces, because I would be running this kind of particular thing. So, of course, my initial response is, geez, give me a break. So, but I did it. I did this whole business simulation, whatever. Weeks go by, Chris. Didn't hear from these folks. I'm like, this is a joke. So finally they called me up. They said, hey, guess what? We decided to shut down that division. So we're not hiring for it anymore.
Oh, thanks for taking up months of my time.
It was like months of my time.
Months.
So, I should have seen the war. I should have bailed on the process early on, but
well, here's the thing I'm seeing, Pete, that really makes a difference. These people that are leaving, they're coming in as fractional consultants. They're not coming in as job interviewers anymore, and I think it's a really good shift. For some of these young companies, they want a bunch of free resources, and so they'll do these crazy long interviews to get all this market insight from the
Yeah.
people interviewing for free, and so my advice to these people, it's like, hey, if they want you to do an all-day seminar as part of your interview process, it's okay to charge them. If you've been a VP before at a different company
Sure.
and they want all this market research and insight, you can charge them for that. If
Yeah.
it's more than like the 5, right? We're on step 6 now. You're presenting in
Mm,
front of the entire board, this whole thing.
mm,
You can come in as a fractional consultant. And it
yeah.
also allows you this, what I call appeal and reveal. You come in 90 days as a fractional advisor. It's like, hey, before we jump in together and commit
Mm,
and get married, let's do a 90
mm,
day. I'll do an audit. We'll look at everything. So often there's technical debt that people don't know about beneath the surface. So often the run rate isn't really there until you look at the books. So often there's all this stuff on finance and product readiness, like true cash flow, true product readiness. Did you just don't know until you're 90 days into the job? So my advice to a lot of
mm,
executives is like, hey, come in as a fractional for 90 days, do the peel and reveal, get to know the founders really well. If it's a great match, awesome. Let's get married up. If it's not, you can get out. If you have your own company, you can still get out and go find other clients, but you're still getting paid for those 90 days. And they're not putting you through this crazy long interview process where they get a bunch of free stuff from you.
right. No, that's a good advice, especially for folks that are kind of later in career. They're
Yeah.
getting recruited that have a lot of assets.
It
That
de-risks on both sides. It de-risks for
Yeah,
the
I
founders. They're
like
not
the
going to
peel
wait.
and reveal. Peel and
Yeah.
reveal. You have a lot of good catchphrases, Chris. Rule of fives, the peel and
Mhm.
reveal.
Yeah.
It's good.
There's so
Um,
much that they just don't show you during the interview process, and you don't get to it till 90 days in.
yeah, no, I remember that one. I'll remember that one for a long time. I'm not going to reveal who the company is, but I wish them
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, sure.
So what else should we be talking about here when we talk about hiring strategies for founders? I mean, I think we've given some pretty good advice here for folks to chew on.
Yeah, for
And
founders, think about talent as early and often as you can.
yeah,
Talent will make or break your entire company. Everything you want out of your business and out of your entire career, the friends you make, the memories you make, the companies you build will come from
mm.
people.
Now so if I'm a founder, we just talked about fractional and peel and reveal.
Mhm,
Yeah, bringing in someone like this CPO, CTO,
mhm.
is this a fractional thing too? Or would you say you go all in? Because these are kind of expensive folks to bring
Very
on board,
expensive.
right?
Very. I mean, they can
So
often take
is it a
50%.
fractional start for a founder? I've got $1 million in seed. I'm building some cool
Yeah,
product. I think I know what
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
doing. But gosh, I can't really plunk down that much for a full-time thing. Does that make sense to do fractional?
It for certain roles, every case is so different, but by and large, the model I'm seeing is where if both parties agree, "Hey, let's do a fractional partnership to start with,"
Hmm.
and if there's really good chemistry after 90 days, then they go all in. So if both parties agree, if one party's like, "Nah, I really need somebody full-time committed," that just doesn't work. So you gotta
Sure.
have buy-in from both sides.
Hmm.
And ultimately, in those 90 days, you do not want people that just strategize. I see that word. That's the most commonly overused word in every AI conversation. You know, it's written by AI. If they use the word strategy everywhere, you don't need more
Strategery, I think
strategists.
it's called
Strategery,
strategic.
no more strategery. People that can get shit done
Right.
in those first 90 days.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. No, it makes sense. I guess that there's a common view. I'm just looking at, I know some startups that are some pre-seed startups, even at the seed round, cash is king, right? I mean, you've got a runway and everyone's kind of doing the best they can. We just talk about hiring divas and stuff like that. They don't come cheap. So,
Mm-mm.
um, you gotta make sure you can keep the lights on until you start turning some profits.
Yep.
If not profits, then at least get some cash
Yep.
in the door.
Yep. That's right. Yep. And these
Interesting.
consultants, you don't want people that bounce between like 4 or 5 customers at once. That fractional partnership does not work. When I say
Mm,
fractional, I mean like I am taking you on as a dedicated partner, and I'm not talking to anybody else, but it's fractional, meaning that you're paying my company for 90 days. That's the model I work on. I don't take on more than one client at a time. So I can be
mm,
hyper focused, but it's a corp to
interesting.
corp relationship, right? So that if we need to break for any reason, it's really easy to decouple.
Right, right. Makes
'Cause
sense.
you have a bunch of fractional consultants in this industry that bounce between 4 or 5 companies at once, and you're just not getting their best. And they might
Right.
help on a roadmap or framework or strategy, but they're not gonna move the needle a ton unless they're hyper focused on just you and your problems.
Interesting. Yeah, good insights. Well, Chris, I feel like this is chock full of knowledge this past hour. And I think we're gonna have this it'll be on a YouTube channel. We're going to chop it up into some shorts because I know that no one has time to sit for an hour and listen to us chat. But it's awesome. It's awesome insight. And like you said, it's something we don't really talk about that much. We talk about, model optimization and frameworks for orchestration and, tops and chips but the people, talent, especially I would say in the business side, right, is something that people don't really pay as much attention to. And like, I think that you're making a good point. It's kind of critical for success. I mean, if you don't have good folks that can think about the business and the customer, then at the end of the day, you're just making cool stuff. So what?
Yep. Everything's downstream from team. Everything's downstream from
downstream from team. Another criticism.
Yeah, everything's downstream. And there's one last piece here. I know there's a lot of job seekers and job searches out there, and I'll only spend just a few seconds on it. The rule I'm seeing now, the people that get the jobs, the rule is you do the job, you prove you can do the job before you have the job. So if you just apply in line, spray and pray, that never works. It's a terrible hit rate. If there's a company you're qualified for, it's going to take about 4 to 5. We can do 5 again, sure. 5 rule 5s to get in the door across LinkedIn, email. You're showing your work. That's my main recommendation to job seekers: is show your work and prove you can do the job beyond the application. So show you've done your homework, right? So video works really well. Converting over video works really well. There's a bunch of great free stuff on LinkedIn on this whole method, the account-based method, where you're looking only at like 10 companies at a time. You're going all in those 10 companies to get the job, and that your hit rates will go way up as you're hyper-focused. If there's not a job at that point, if you know you're qualified and you show you're hungry and you show your work to the right decision makers, and they see your name pop up like 5 times in a week, they're going to call you back. They're like, hey, I like this person's hustle. I like how they're showing me their stuff. They know our problems. They're coming up with solutions before they even have the job. Those are the ones that get the job.
Okay. Good advice. Maybe we should end on that nugget.
I know, Chris, time. It's fun.
Thanks a lot for joining me. I'm sure it won't be the last time, but this is just an important topic. We need to keep revisiting it. So thanks again.
Absolutely. It's great seeing you. Take care.
All right. Take care.